This fifth tutorial covers all variable types included in the pairfam main datasets and explains their naming convention. What are person identifiers? The identifiers are identification variables for the anchor and alternate respondents. Each respondent was assigned a unique identifier in their first wave of participation that remained unchanged throughout the panel. The variable HHID is the 3 to 6-digit household number assigned by Cantor Public to identify anchor respondents in each wave. The variable ID was then generated by multiplying HHID by 1000 and serves as the reference identifier for anchor respondents. This variable can be found in every dataset, so that users can easily match anchor data to alternate data. The partner identification variable PID is generated by adding 101 to the anchor's ID for the current partner in the first interview. For example, the anchor with the ID 999000 has a partner with the PID 999101. New partners were numbered consecutively. Continuing with the same example, the same anchor's second reported partner would have the PID 999102. From wave 2 onward, children are identified by the variable CID. Each child mentioned by the anchor respondent was assigned a number at first mention. Similar to the partner's PID, CID is generated by adding 200 to the anchor respondent's ID, plus the position number of the child in the anchor data. For example, 999202 for the second child who was mentioned in the anchor interview. The variable parent ID K contains the identification number of a child's other biological parent. The reference is always the anchor respondent. In case a child is an anchor's stepchild, parent ID step K contains the identification number of the child's biological mother or father. Note that these variables can differ from the variable PID, which denotes the anchor respondent's current partner. The other parent of the child might be a former partner. For the anchor's parents, MID identifies the anchor respondent's mother, ID plus 301. FID the father, ID plus 302. SMID for a stepmother, ID plus 303. And SFID for a stepfather, ID plus 304. If a new stepmother or stepfather was introduced, the next odd or even number was assigned. The parent data include up to 3 parents per anchor respondent. Each parent provides information about their children, the anchor respondent and their siblings. Each sibling was also assigned a unique identifier, SIB-ID, which is part of the parent data. X denotes the order of the siblings. Please be aware that the order of the anchor siblings in the parent data is not identical to that in the anchor data. Former child respondents who became anchor respondents themselves, so-called step-up respondents, receive a new HHID and ID after completing the first interview as anchor respondents. The variable F-CID represents their former identifier as a respondent of the child interview, CID, making it possible to match step-up data with their parents' anchor data or with their own former child data. Further information on person identifiers can be found in the data manual. How can you identify the different samples and waves? The variable wave is successively numbered for each fielding period, representing the survey wave. The pairfam study consists of various anchor samples, which can be identified by 3 variables: demotive, sample, and cohort. Respondents from the integrated demotive study can be identified by the demotive variable. The variable sample categorizes respondents from all samples: the pairfam base, demotive, wave 11 refreshment, and step-up sample. The generated variable cohort represents the birth cohort from which the anchor respondents were drawn. Values 1 to 4 represent the 4 birth cohorts from the base and refreshment sample. 0 and 9 represent step-up respondents, with 0 marking the former focus child's first interview and 9 for subsequent interviews. Which types of variables are included in the anchor data? Most of the data stored are survey variables, which are coded values provided by the respondents. For example, HLT1 represents the anchor respondent's self-rated health status. From wave 2 onward, the anchor datasets also contain preload variables. These are generated variables used for dependent interviewing. For example, D1 stores the anchor's day of birth. This information is then preloaded in subsequent interviews to determine question routing and wording to improve the personalization of the questionnaire. Dependent interviewing is also used to ease the burden of the interview and to remind respondents of information reported in the last interview. Auxiliary variables are generated during the interview and are also used to improve filtering and question wording. The variable HP, for example, stores whether the anchor respondent has a partner and determines which follow-up questions are posed to the anchor. Paradata includes information concerning the interview situation and the interviewer. The variable int sex, for example, stores interviewer gender. Generated variables are indicators created during data processing to facilitate user analyses. For example, the variable age. During the interview, the anchor respondent's day, month, and year of birth is collected. From this information, the variable age is then generated during data processing to store the anchor respondent's age at the time of each interview. Macrodata are retrospective context attributes also generated during data processing. The variable big, for example, provides information about the settlement structure of the anchor's main residence. Weighting factors are also generated during data processing and are provided for the anchor data for each of the available samples: the pairfam base, refreshment sample, and integrated demotive sample. Flag variables indicate inconsistent responses within an interview. The variable flag 5, for example, indicates that the anchor respondent reported being married to their partner before their relationship with the same partner began. Tag variables indicate time-inconsistent values across survey waves. For example, tag sex indicates a change in gender between waves. Is there a variable naming convention? The goal in naming the pairfam variables was to create expressive variable names. For example, CRN for the children module and SIN for the module for singles. Furthermore, responses from different respondent types are recognizable by a prefix: P for partner, C for child, and PAR for parents. Pairfam also implements qualifiers. For example, D stands for day, M for month, and Y for year, H for hour, and M for minutes. In addition, some anchor variables for responses to questions concerning children and partners include identifying information in the variable name. Children and partners are numbered consecutively as part of the variable name. All of the anchor's children are assigned a number the first time they are mentioned, K1 to K15. The established numbering of the anchor's children remains constant throughout the survey, even in the case of death. In contrast, the numbering of partners, P1 to P5, as part of some variable names, follows a rolling system and can be occupied by different partners in different waves. The rolling system works as follows. In wave 1, the current partner was assigned position P0. In wave 2, the preloaded partner information from wave 1 received the position P1. Any new current partner was assigned to position P2. And partners reported between waves occupy the positions P3 to P5. As of wave 3, the auxiliary variable HP in R in the anchor datasets contains the running number of the current partner. Generally, information on partners is documented only for the current relationship up to 1 year after separation. The current partner can always be identified by the partner identifier PID, which remains stable throughout the panel. Let's have a look at 3 examples. The variable EHC2P1 M15 stores the relationship status with partner 1 in month 15. The root of the variable is EHC2. It consists of an acronym that describes the topic of the variable EHC plus a number for the question in this module, 2. P1 stands for partner 1 and M15 stands for month 15. Now let's look at the variables PA14I1 and PPA14I1. PA14I1 includes the anchor's response to question 14 concerning housework division with their partner, PA. The anchor's partner received the same question in the partner survey. So to keep things simple, the question was named the same and the prefix P was added for partner. This convention makes it easy to match anchor and altery data sets without changing the name of the variables beforehand. The suffix I1 indicates that this question belongs to an item battery and represents the first item. This is the end of the 5th tutorial. The next tutorial will explain the Event History Calendar, or EHC module, in more detail.